working to connect a region of over 600 bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. The Philippine government, through the Department of Foreign Affairs, has expressed concern over China's latest reported reclamation activities in some unoccupied features in the Spratly Islands on the South China Sea. The death toll from a landslide at an unauthorized campsite in Malaysia rose to 25 as search and rescue teams continue to comb muddy terrain today. And the Thai Navy said 6 bodies have been found and 1 survivor was rescued after the sinking of a naval vessel 2 days ago in the Gulf of Thailand.
Well, yeah.
And Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Arsenio Balisacan said economic growth will likely exceed target this year, given expectations of a robust fourth quarter. First in our news, the Philippine government, through the Department of Foreign Affairs, has expressed concern over China's latest reported reclamation activities in some unoccupied features in the Spratly Islands on the South China Sea. Now, Bloomberg reported on Tuesday night that China is constructing on several unoccupied land features in the contested waters, citing warnings from Western officials that these latest activities indicate an attempt to advance a new status quo, even though it's too early to know whether China would seek to militarize them. Foreign Affairs spokesperson Maria Teresita Daza said the department takes note of the Bloomberg article on reported reclamation activities by China in unoccupied features of the Spratlys. She said, "We are seriously concerned as such activities contravene the Declaration of Conduct on the South China Sea's undertaking on self-restraint and the 2016 Arbitral Award." She said, "We have asked relevant Philippine agencies to verify and validate the contents of this report." The ministry statement came just a week after Manila filed a diplomatic protest against Beijing after a Chinese Coast Guard vessel in November forcefully seized debris from the Chinese rocket that was retrieved by a Philippine Navy vessel. The Chinese embassy in Manila denied the use of force and said the handover took place after a friendly consultation. Last week, the Philippine Defense Ministry also expressed great concern over the reported swarming of Chinese vessels in Iroquois Reef and Sabina Shoal, which Manila both claims as its territory. The Thai Navy said 6 bodies have been found. 1 survivor was rescued after the sinking of a naval vessel 2 days ago in the Gulf of Thailand. 76 sailors from the HTMS Sukhothai have been hauled from the sea after the vessel went down late Sunday, roughly 37 kilometers off the country's southeastern coast. First, let's listen in.
เป็นต้นไปนะครับจนกว่าภารกิจจะเสร็จสิ้นเพื่อนำกำลังพลทุกนายกลับบ้านผมขอยืนยันนะครับว่ากองทัพเรือจะทำทุกอย่างอย่างเต็มความสามารถในการที่จะช่วยเหลือกำลังพลทั้งในส่วนที่รับตัวมาแล้วและที่ยังค้นหาไม่พบนะครับ
A helicopter transported the deceased to a naval pier late on Tuesday night, where a fleet of ambulances waited to take them to a local hospital for autopsies. Helicopters, 2 planes, and 4 ships, the HTMS Kiraburi, HTMS Angthong, HTMS Naruswan, and HTMS Bumibol Adulyadej continued searching for survivors. The bodies of 4 men were recovered. Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Thai Navy, Chong Chai Kong Pai Tai, told a press conference in Bangkok. The Navy later revised the toll upwards. Admiral Konlatis Navanugraha called the incident one of the most severe tragedies in the Navy's history. The HTMS Sukhothai was commissioned in 1987 and was built in the U.S. by the now-defunct Tacoma Boat Building Company, according to the U.S. Naval Institute. Meanwhile, at the pier in Prachuap Khiri Khan province, families of those missing were gathered to wait for news as anxiety over their loved ones mounted. Take a look.
มันบอกไม่ถูกลูกชายครับมันก็ธรรมดาก็มีความหวังอย่างเดียวครับ
แล้ววันเสาร์เขาก็ถ่ายตอนอยู่บนเรือว่าหนูเมาคลื่นเรือคลื่นแรงมากแม่ตอนนี้ก็บอกว่าลูกดูแลตัวเองนะเรามามีอีกช่วงนึงถ่ายวิดีโอให้ดูตอนที่ว่าคลื่นก็ยังแรงอยู่แต่อยู่บนดาดฟ้าแล้วแต่ตอนนั้นยังไม่มีเหตุการณ์อะไร
Now, efforts to find the missing crew were focused on aerial searches, with the Royal Thai Air Force assisting the operation, which has been affected by strong winds. The vessel, a corvette, the smallest type of military warship, is believed to have run into trouble after its electronic system was damaged, according to the Navy. A warning from the Thai Meteorological Office remained in place with strong winds, causing rough conditions in the Gulf of Thailand, and seafarers cautioned to be careful and small boats to stay ashore. Meanwhile, Southeast Asian politicians called for the rescue of a boat carrying as many as 200 Rohingya refugees, including women and children, stranded at sea for several weeks now. The boat carrying the refugees has been reported in waters close to Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and India in the Andaman Sea and the Malacca Strait, one of the world's busiest shipping routes. We urgently call on ASEAN member states and other countries in the region to launch search and rescue operations, according to ex-Indonesian MP Eva Sundari, who is a member of advocacy group ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights, in a statement. She said it is disgraceful that a boat filled with men, women, and children in grave danger has been allowed to remain adrift. Meanwhile, Charles Santiago, a former Malaysian MP and chairman of APHR, said in the same statement that the delay in rescuing the stranded refugees likely has already caused untold suffering and loss of life. The vessel's current location is unknown, and it's unclear when or exactly from where it departed. But at least one relative of a passenger hoping to reach Malaysia said he was taken to the boat in deep waters by a small fishing trawler from Bangladesh. Sprawling refugee camps in Bangladesh are home to some 1 million Rohingya, many of whom fled neighboring Myanmar after a 2017 military crackdown, bringing accounts of rape, arson, and killings. In other news, the death toll from a landslide at an unauthorized campsite in Malaysia rose to 25 as search and rescue teams continued to comb muddy terrain today. Now, 8 people are still missing after a pre-dawn landslide on Friday hit the site located at an organic farm near the town of Batang Kali in Selangor State, just north of the capital, Kuala Lumpur. On Tuesday night, the remains of a young girl were recovered, according to officials. Local police chief Sufyan Abdullah said the girl is believed to be between 6 and 10 years of age and that she was found 16 feet below ground. When found, the victim was dressed in pink pants and shirt, sleepwear. Now, this brings the death toll from the landslide to 25, including 8 children. Officials said that when the landslide struck, there had been more than 90 people, most of them sleeping at the campsite near a mountain casino resort. More than 60 campers and had been found safe or rescued. The farm didn't have a license to run a campsite, and its operators will be punished if they were found to have broken the law. In tonight's other news, Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Arsenio Balisacan said economic growth will likely succeed or likely exceed target this year, given expectations of a robust fourth quarter. The NEDA chief said the economic managers are closely monitoring internal and external risks that may affect the country's economic performance in the next quarters. The government, he said, needs to expand and diversify the country's sources of growth if it's to keep the economy growing. Take a look.
Well, yeah. The target initially for 2022 was 6.5% to 7.5%, right? That first 3 quarters, we're already reaching 7.7, or 6. So it's quite exceeded already, and I think given the indications that we are seeing in the fourth quarter, it's likely going to exceed that even the upper limit of that range.
Okay.
We expect to see robust growth in the fourth quarter. And moving for next year, we of course are aware of the global headwinds there, particularly the very likely recession for many advanced economies, and the persistence of that problems with the supply chain, particularly in relation to the ongoing war in Ukraine. And so there are still uncertainties there, and so we have reduced a bit the expect our targets from 6.5% to 8% originally to now just 6 to 7% for next year. And we believe that there's a lot of space for domestically driven growth. That the major driver of growth is consumption and the supply side and the demand side, and then you have services also on the supply side. We expect that to continue in the near term next year. Moving forward in the medium term, we need to expand, diversify those sources of growth. We need to, instead of just looking at consumption, we need to be seeing more investment. We need to be seeing more trade sources of growth. And in the supply side, instead of just seeing services, we need to seeing more manufacturing, more construction, more utilities, more even mining. We hope that would contribute strongly to medium-term growth. Agriculture, of course, is going to be also a driver to the extent that we can increase productivity there and temper any pressures extended and exerted on food prices.
In a related story, the National Economic and Development Authority has also called for a swift enactment of the planned Sovereign Wealth Fund to enhance the newly approved blueprint for the socio-economic development of the country. Secretary Arsenio Balisacan has urged the Senate to pass the Maharlika bill. The earlier the better, he said. Let's listen in.
We see the Maharlika as another vehicle for sources of funds and investments. Just like PPP is one vehicle, ODA is one vehicle, GA is another, and so on. So the more vehicles we have, the better, and that will ensure that we can ramp up not only the infrastructure but even the other priorities of the government, development priorities. The earlier the better, because as I said, what it does is it complements, it enhances the available vehicles that we already have. No? So that's the whole idea.
On December 15, the House of Representatives approved on the third and final reading the bill seeking to establish the MIF, a sovereign wealth fund that the government can use to make investments. House Bill number 6608 was approved with 279 lawmakers voting in the affirmative, while 6 voted against. No legislator abstained from the voting. President Marcos has called for a swift passage of the bill to enable the government to earn extra funds to finance infrastructure projects. The version of the Maharlika America Investment Fund, passed by the House of Representatives on a second reading on Thursday, will have two state banks initially providing a total of 75 billion pesos. Central bank profits, which the bill's authors estimate at 35 billion pesos this year, will make up the balance. In other news, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim won a confidence vote in Parliament, cementing his mandate a month after an inconclusive election result forced him to ally with the graft-tainted party of his former political rivals. Take a look. The affirmation of support was done via voice vote late in the day, with those in favor of Anwar's leadership drowning out those opposed, according to Johari Abdul, Speaker of the lower house of Parliament. Anwar told AFP he had the support of 148 members of the 222-seat legislature, giving him two-thirds majority necessary to pass reforms after a divisive November 19 general election. House Speaker Johari, a close Anwar ally, got 147 votes when he was elected to his post earlier Monday, with one MP from the ruling coalition absent, according to Shamsul Iskandar Mohammed Akin, an aide to the premier. He had earlier said the speaker got 148 votes. Analysts said the strong majority should bring political stability to the Southeast Asian nation, which has seen four leadership changes in as many years. In tonight's other news, November export orders from Taiwan saw their sharpest contraction since the height of the financial crisis, in a portent for the health of the global economy. Take a look. Now, orders from overseas dropped 23% in November, according to data released by the Economics Ministry, the biggest fall since March 2009, when the world was being battered by the financial crisis. The plunge was much worse than the near 13% drop economists surveyed by Bloomberg News had forecast. Global sentiment has been hit by inflation and central bank interest rate hikes, as well as concerns over the health of China's economy. The baseline forecast from Oxford Economics now anticipates a global recession starting in Q4 2022 and comprising 3 straight quarters of negative per capita world GDP growth, according to a note from the advisory firm. Taiwan is a global supplier of electronics, in particular state-of-the-art semiconductors, and the drop-off in orders adds to evidence that demand for technology products is weakening across the globe. South Korea and China also reported forecasts beating falls in exports last month. Global recession concerns are also being heightened by China's abrupt decision to cancel its strict zero COVID policy. And finally, in our news, in Hawaii, 17-year-old Arthur, along with his friends, recently worked on a school project that demonstrated the benefits of preserving the oceans. Now, this project also turned out to be the ideal comfort food for many in different parts of the world, even here in ASEAN region. Prepare your taste buds for this story. Take a look.
Incorporating. So first step, add all your mushrooms. Yup. We're at the noodle stage. 3 is the magic number. Okay, and then we can just cut to when I fully get all the skin off. Right there. Can I just dump that in there? Alright, you can stop recording. Let me just set some more skin. Almost there. There you go.
Aloha, guys. And as my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. See you back tomorrow. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.